In the next One Piece, Luffy teaches the women of Amazon Lily what compassion and empathy are.
Are those his name for his breasts? Everyone on Amazon Lily has names for their breasts.
Of course they would.
The look on Joel's face, y'all. I cannot.
Hancocks are named Ta and Da.
King of the Wetness gonna take you down, gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now. King of the Wetness gonna take you down, gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now. We've got a multi-act season, 1, 2, 3. So come aboard to brave the sea. Supernovas and mystery. Warlords, wars, and tragedy. King of the Wetness gonna take you down. Gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now.
Celestial dragons, lowest of low. Overwhelming enemies, it's time to go. Luffy's gonna fight for his big bro, so now it's time to start the show. Hello, fellow slaves to Boa Hancock's beauty, and welcome to episode 99 of King of the What Now? A One Piece podcast reviewing the One Piece anime from the very beginning. I'm your host, Joel, and I've been set to be executed for my crime of being a man.
And I'm your co-host, Kat, and who put this podcast in my way? Kick.
Oh my goodness, yes, so we just finished watching some episodes, and I actually have the list up this time, but I was looking at the recording, not the document. We just finished watching episodes 408 through 414, and I can't wait to give that sweet, succinct summary. But first, chatting with the hosts.
Oh, we're hosts, and we're chatting, chat with the hosts now.
Boom.
I kind of stole the beginning of that riff from the TFS Sitting Cutie segment. I'm sorry.
Well, hopefully they can forgive us. Now, Catherine, is there anything that you've been up to since our last recording that you would like to talk about?
Well, I mean, I've been listening to the famous book on trauma, The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay, very exciting.
Yeah, it's not really a One Piece thing, but as a therapist myself, I've been trying to become more trauma-informed in my practice. So that's what I've been doing.
You know how your brain auto-completes, even if it's not a sentence that makes sense? I thought you were going to say, I've been trying to become more traumatized, and I was like, what? But no, that was my brain being dumb for a second.
For sure.
Okay, so, peek behind the curtains. We recorded the last couple of episodes covering Sabaody at wildly different times in our lives, and basically, I thought we had covered some things in a previous episode that we hadn't. Now that I've had the chance to go back and start editing them and listening to them, I realize there's a couple of shows that have kind of slipped through the gaps. We watched both seasons of The Boys, which is available on Amazon Prime, and it's a gritty, realistic superhero show. And if you don't like the grittiness, this is kind of not for you. Like, you would definitely get an R rating if it was a movie, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, and the characters are actually pretty super well written.
I was told way back when this show was first coming out that it was probably too gory for me to enjoy it, because I can do, gory anime, but I can't really do gory,
realism?
movies and TV.
Okay.
But then Joel was like, I really want to watch this. And I was like, I thought it was too gory for us. And we started, and I got really into it, surprisingly. So, the gore was a little much, and I did just kind of, not watch at those parts. But for the most part, it had some interesting commentary, mostly on capitalism and consumerism and turning people into products.
Yes. So the really, really basic 50,000-foot view is that there's a company that basically owns the PR for, all of the superheroes, and they do a really good job, but maybe they're evil because they have so much money. And so that's really it. They have characters that are very clearly based off of the Justice League. They're called the Seven, and one of them is a man who can talk to fish and is constantly ridiculed for it. And there's someone else who has all of these incredible powers. No one can beat him, and one of his signature moves is the laser beams that come from his eyes. There's someone who can run really fast. So yeah, it's really good, and the characters are deeper than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be kind of shock horror, oh my god, that guy used a laser beam to sew through 4 bodies at once, but it turns out that there's actually some pretty good, complex character relationships going on, so I'd recommend giving it a watch, but, if it's too bloody for you, that absolutely Doesn't surprise me. It's not for everyone.
Also, we binged a bunch of it in like 2 days because that's just the way that we are. But honestly, I think that maybe shows benefit from spacing your viewing out a little.
You want to know something really funny? You said something almost exactly like that when we reviewed Umbrella Academy in episode 97, or 96. So I'm just glad that we are consistent in our ideals.
Yeah, no, for real. We consistently believe this, but consistently don't do it.
We don't have the right brain goos to, like, live fully productive lives, so sometimes we just veg out and we watch some episodes.
Yep.
Okay. Another thing that I want to cover really quick, I don't have much to say, but there is a game on Steam called Littlewood, and it's not too expensive. I don't remember, I don't think it's free, but I don't think it's more than like $20 US. It is a 2D farm sim, think kind of like Stardew Valley. It's really good. Kat and I started playing it after our friend from the Full Spectrum podcast, Trey, uploaded his first impressions, and we started playing it, and we even recorded some of our footage of us playing, and maybe someday that'll see the light of day. I would love to be a full-time like YouTuber podcast person who gets to do Let's Plays, but we'll have to see where the future takes us. But it's a good game. There's a lot of really interesting characters, and I like a lot of the different interactions you can have in that game, and it's good.
It's very cute. Where would you put it in relation to like Stardew Valley?
Oh, that's really hard to say. I feel like Stardew Valley has a couple of different kind of farms that you can start on, kind of a thing, and there's kind of like different play styles, so you could focus really hard on being kind of more like a farmer, or you could focus on the dating, and there's some like combat aspects. Littlewood in that regard is a little bit more limited, but I think that it is earlier in development. I believe that eventually Concerned Ape, creator of Stardew Valley, hired on like a couple of extra people to help with the load. And so I don't know if Littlewood has gotten to that point yet. But no, I really like both those games. Littlewood does have a larger variety of people that you can interact with, I'm pretty sure. And also it has things like there's a bird person and there are cat people, there are animal people throughout the game. And it also has this interesting tidbit where you play as the hero who saved the world, but you lost all of your memories, and as far as I know, there's no plot about getting them back, but so you run into a bunch of people who have heard of your exploits. There's like a guy who was the old man from your starter village who comes to live with you, and there's other people who are like, oh, I'm trying to research the world-ending event that the Dark Wizard put into motion, so you can like get a little bit of lore that way, so
yeah. No, it's very cute. I like it.
It also has those little bugs, the whirlybugs, that have the propellers on their butts, and I know that you're a huge fan of those creatures.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I got a Minecraft update for anyone who really cares.
A Minecraft update?
Yeah, absolutely. Not an update to the game, an update on my personal playthrough of the Minecraft
Why
game.
don't you work for Mojang?
I know. They're coming out with the new version with Amethyst and the scary guy named the Warden pretty soon, so...
Very scary guy.
So, I have a farm that has 680 plantable spots. I don't know why I need to say the number, but I worked really hard on that. It's like probably the best looking building that I've designed. And when griefing is turned on, we turn it off because we didn't want creepers destroying our beautiful works of art. But when it's turned on and villagers can actually pick up the crops, it produces a lot of baby villages very quickly because there are 10 sets of potential parents. And so I got a lot of villagers that way. And I used the villagers in order to get librarians for every enchantment in the game. So if you want a Depth Strider, we got a guy who has Depth Strider. You want Flame Aspect or Fire Aspect, there's a guy who has Fire Aspect. So
Joel, how would people get the opportunity to play Minecraft with you?
Yes, let me just advertise for our friends. Is it shilling if it's... I guess it is. It doesn't matter if you're self-promoting or not. The Full Spectrum podcast has a Patreon, and the only thing that they put behind their rewards is access to their Discord. You can get in as little as $1 a month, and if you join, you can be added to the Minecraft role. They take a little bit of time to like make sure that you're not just someone who's joining with the intent purpose of griefing, but then you can join the server, and that's where we have all of our different things.
Yeah, and they're all really cool people in this server, and if you want to like actually see the Minecraft world, good buddy Trey has done flyovers of the Minecraft server on the Full Spectrum Podcast YouTube channel.
Yes.
So definitely go check that out.
I will definitely try to remember to link those in the description of this episode. And we talk about them all the time, and we do have a good relationship with our friends over there, but they're also good people, so consider supporting them if you can. We also have a Discord. If you want to join, you can let us know on Twitter. I think that our DMs are open.
Joel is Cotwin_pod, and I am at Pirate Ghost Host, so shoot us a DM.
Yeah, we don't bite. Also, we can't through the internet because it's ones and zeros. The other thing I want to shout out is I tamed all of the different cats, which has been a long-standing goal of mine, and in the process of building this giant stone building that imprisons, houses all of our workers, all of our enchanters, the village kept spawning more and more cats until eventually I had one of every color, so I'm very happy about that.
That's super cool.
Related to me picking up Minecraft, I have discovered YouTuber Wattles. I will put his channel in the episode description as well. I like his energy. He's a good boy. He does Minecraft tutorials and he builds things, and he's just like a really chill, laid back person. And I'm very interested to see if the story with the demonic burb ever is fully realized, if it reaches its climax. Okay. I don't want to gush about this too long. The focus of this podcast is One Piece, of course, but we did recently buy the entirety of the Quints manga, the quintessential quintuplets manga, and I have been reading it in a fury trying to catch up to where the anime is, so then Kat and I together can read the rest of the series and finally figure out which girl he's going to marry. It seems pretty obvious to me that he's somehow going to marry all 5 of them, which is not the weirdest thing that anime or manga has ever done. It's really good. I would highly recommend checking out both the anime and the manga. There's some jokes that I think work better with the sound effects and musical cues and like the zoom in and the different colors, but there's some content that has been cut from the anime because I guess the anime director likes one of the ships in particular, so there was a chapter that very heavily focused on character who was not their favorite. And so the author or the anime director just said, well, we don't need this. It doesn't advance the plot. It doesn't advance my agenda. So I would definitely recommend checking them both out. They both have their strengths and their weaknesses. But, it's such a good series. I love all of the girls. I didn't think that I would love all of them. There's 2 that were standoffish at the beginning. But no, they've kind of had their character growth. And I like how they are now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And okay, that about wraps up chatting with the hosts.
Moving on to the episodes, Joel, can you tell us a little bit about these episodes we just watched?
Would you like a succinct summary?
I would love a succinct summary. As succinct as you can get it.
Okay, I was about to say big succinct summary or a little succinct summary.
A little succinct summary.
So I trained under a waterfall. I went to an elder man who had the chakra energy, and I said, can you teach me the ways? It was rigorous, it was life-threatening, but I persevered. I used the power of my heart to master the technique of the succinct summary. Luffy ends up on the island of all women, Amazon Lily, whose empress is an egotistical but beautiful woman named Boa Hancock, who is also one of the Shichibukai. Luffy is saved by some warriors because they think that he's a girl. They don't recognize what a penis is, and but they try to kill him when he wakes up and they discover that he's a man. He eventually happens upon Boa Hancock in the bath, and he sees something on her back. This is so bad that she she sentences him to public execution in the battle arena. First, he fights a panther, which he defeats with one punch! But then he has to fight Boa's 2 younger sisters, who ate snake fruits and seem to have a strange power that we'll go into more after the succinct summary. Luffy struggles to defeat them, but eventually he does manage to basically set one of them on fire by having them attack each other, and her shirt is about to burn off, and people are going to see the mark on her back, which is just as bad as the one that's on Boa's back, so Luffy jumps, and he uses his body to protect it from view, and the battle comes to an end. Boa's like, okay, we're not going to execute him anymore. And that's been your succinct summary. There is one tiny little thing, and that's when Boa Hancock was coming back to the island. She briefly had a conversation with Vice Admiral Momonga of...
Momonga. Is he Momongus?
Absolutely. So he basically says, look, the Marines have been calling you. You need to show up for this war that's going to happen. If you don't show up, we will revoke your Shichibukai status. You will no longer be a warlord. And Boa's like, I have no interest in answering these calls. And she continues into the island, but he says that he will wait for her for 3 days, which will be important in the next set of episodes that we cover.
Convenient of him to just, like, chill.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he was sent to complete a mission until he can bring Hancock back, you know? He has nothing better to do.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for the government's purposes, it would be better to not have to take away her status.
Probably, yeah.
So
that is kind of interesting, isn't it? Because they have to balance it. They want to be able to control the people under them, and the threat of taking away the title is how they do that. But if they did, for some reason, all go on strike at the same time, they would suddenly have to fill those 7 vacant spots. And I'm guessing that it was hard to wrangle up these 7 in the first place.
Well, and also Hancock is very strong.
Yeah, it seems
so,
like she's pretty powerful.
No longer having her as an ally would be no good.
Exactly.
For anyone. Do we want to kind of go into any new information or characters we got? We got a lot of new characters. I don't know about information.
Dude, we got an entire new island with a bunch of named characters. Let's start with the Vice Admiral Momonga, because he is not a central player in these episodes, so I think we can kind of get him out of the way.
Okay.
Do you want to... What are your thoughts on Vice Admiral Momonga?
Oh, man, he really seems like a seasoned kind of war veteran kind of guy.
Absolutely.
You know, Boa went to use her power, which we got some understanding of how that works. That's some new info. But she goes to use her power, and he stabs himself in the hand to distract himself so it doesn't work. And we'll explain how her power works in a second. But I just thought that was really clever of him.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, because it shows that he has fought people with powers before. He didn't know what her abilities were, which is strange. You'd think that the Marines would have detailed, like, fact sheets on their Shichibukai allies. But yeah, he was able to react in time and save himself, but the rest of his crew got turned to stone, which allowed Hancock to steal all of their shit.
He also got swallowed by a sea king and cut it open from the inside because he didn't want it to attack his ship, I think.
Yeah, he was protecting his men.
He was like, better for the captain to get eaten than the ship to be attacked. So he's pretty cool. I like him. He's kind of a hard ass. Probably not a guy that you want on your bad side, but he's cool.
Yeah, and as far as non-filler characters go, I believe that this is only like the 3rd Vice Admiral. I could be wrong. There might be others I'm forgetting, but Garp was a Vice Admiral. In filler only, the G8 Jonathan, head of that base, was Vice Admiral. I believe Jaguar D. Saul, who was Robin's friend, I think he was a Vice Admiral. Sadly, he's not alive anymore, and now we have this guy, Momonga. He doesn't seem to have any kind of powers, but he seems to be pretty good with the sword.
And he has a fun name, Momonga. Momonga.
Yeah, we're going to eventually get to the point where we get a bunch of Vice Admirals introduced at once, and they don't get as much time as Momonga. So Momonga's one of the few whose names I actually know off the top of my head. But there's like a guy named Strawberry, and I have no idea what he looks like. There's another guy named like Dachshund or something. Like, it's a lot of them are named after dogs, and I do not know what he looks like either.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We also met a lot of different people from Amazon Lily, but there's only kind of a handful that are important.
You can basically break them into 3 groups, kinda.
Yeah, I'd say so. The important thing about the Amazon Lily women is that they're all named after flowers.
Yes. They're named after flowers. They are all women. Sometimes, if you're wondering, like, but how would women be able to breed? Because, like, I think the Greeks had a island of all women, but they had gods, you know, and that could, like, just create new people. But apparently every once in a while people will just leave the island, and they'll do something mysterious. Who knows what it is? And then they come back with the child.
And the narrator was like, and those children are always born female.
Always. But yeah, they think that strength is beauty, and they are all very capable fighters. And they also all have, like, snake companions. It's not really explained, but my assumption is that there's, like, a coming-of-age ceremony when they're finally recognized as an adult, and they're given this pet snake, and they come in a variety of colors, and they seem fairly intelligent, but they also seem happy to be, like, tools. Like,
they're used as, like, bow and arrows?
Yeah, they're used as the actual bow of bow and arrows, and then they fire anyways.
Yeah. So going back to the groups, we've got the Boa sisters.
Yes, the leaders. So Boa Hancock herself is the Empress, but her 2 sisters are also the 2 strongest, highest-ranking members of the Kuja Pirates, which is the group that Boa leads. 2 of them are snakes. You have a king cobra, that is Marigold. And then you have Sandersonia, who is the anaconda.
Also the cutest of the sisters.
Definitely the cutest of the sisters. One other thing, too. Many people have criticisms of Oda's drawing of women and depiction of women, and a lot of them have pretty unnatural proportions, I would say. But on Amazon Lily, we actually get quite a variety of different body shapes, and there's quite a few plus-size girls. There's another one that we meet named Sweet Pea. We'll talk about her in a second. But Marigold is on the thicker side as well. And I don't know if it's natural or something happened to her, but the other sister, Sandersonia, she's a bobblehead. Like, her head is, like, too big for her body, and it's, like, square-shaped, but it doesn't bobble. Like, that's not the joke, but that's just what I think every time I look at her. And then Boa Hancock is also described as the most beautiful woman in all the world. And she doesn't have snake powers. She has love powers, which seems to affect people's impure thoughts. If they look at her and they go, hubba, 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 she can turn her fingers into the heart shape, shoot them with a beam, very similar to Foxy's Noro Noro beam, and it turns them to stone. It works on Marines, it works on women, it works on her subordinates, it works on her enemies. She's so beautiful that no one can resist her, except for Luffy, who totally resists her.
Which is one of the funniest scenes in the anime, and we will talk about it. The other group is just kind of like the warriors that Luffy interacted with. You've got Alephandra, who's a giant lady.
She's so cute. I love her.
Super cute. You've got Margaret, who's like a regular-sized lady, and she's pretty cute, too.
She's the one who gets the most one-on-one interaction time with Luffy, so if Luffy were to get someone to join his crew from this island, it would probably be her.
Right, and then there's Sweet Pea.
Yeah, and she's just kind of a plus-size girl who hangs out with the other 2. We don't know much about this group of 3. The only thing we really know is that they love Boa Hancock, and Margaret doesn't want to kill Luffy. She thinks that he's an honest person after talking with him, but she also realizes that she could get in huge trouble if she doesn't kill him.
Absolutely.
And then, like, I said 3 groups. The last group is Granny Neon, who's in her own little, like, independent status. She was the Empress of the island 3 generations ago, I think they said. She's an old lady who is one of the only people who can kind of stand up to Hancock, but is not immune to her charms. Like, she has, like, a little blushing, like, oh, she's so cute scene as well. She seems to actually have a head on her shoulder, unlike everyone else who just kind of, like, literally simp for Boa Hancock. They're like, we will do anything for her. It's so beautiful when she kills people brutally. We love that about her. But Neon is like, there's, like, a world outside of this island, and we gotta think about the real world politics.
And how that's going to affect Kuja. Also, you might be thinking, Neon doesn't sound like the name of a flower. Her actual name is Gloriosa.
That's right, which is a flower. Okay.
Right. Speaking of names that don't sound like flowers, we've got Boa Sandersonia, Boa Marigold, and then Boa Hancock.
No,
and
Marigold's totally a flower, isn't it?
No, it is.
Okay.
I was getting to that.
Well, I'm just saying, Hancock and Sandersonia I didn't think were flowers. That one I recognize. Marigold is
yes,
like
Sandersonia is a flower. But you threw off my groove.
I'm sorry.
Go out the window.
Ah.
Hancock, it turns out, is part of the scientific name of the snowberry flowers.
Okay.
So
you can use those to tame foxes. Only square-shaped foxes.
I learned that from the One Piece wiki. And then also, she shares her name with Thomas Hancock, who is the man who invented rubber.
Right? Oh, rubber? Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's like, if she were to develop a relationship with Luffy, that would be kind of like their tie.
Okay.
So those are the 2 potential places that her name came from.
That's awesome. So, which of these, like, 2 groups? I don't know what else there is to say about Granny Neon. Even though she is older, she is still a decent warrior. She got thrown out of the Empress's palace, and she managed to land on her feet unharmed because she's still a warrior. Everyone on Amazon Lily is a warrior. And then also she was able to briefly capture Luffy when she wanted to ask him a question. He tried running off. She was able to get him when all of the others had been chasing him for a couple of episodes.
His one weakness, an old lady.
But yeah, do you want to talk about kind of his interactions with Margaret? Or do you think there's anything there? Or would you rather just talk about the Hancock sister, or the Gosh dang, it's the Boa sisters.
The cool thing about Luffy is he wins people over without trying. So he kidnaps Margaret, I think, because he needs her to tell him where to find a ship.
She has his Beaver paper
That's
for
right.
Rayleigh because he passed out, and she was one of the people that like saved him, and she took his clothes and washed them and added some frills, which was kind of funny. But she also found the paper and like kept it on her person. So he kidnapped her to be like, "What'd you do with this paper?"
Right. And just through kind of being himself and thanking her and asking if there's anything he can do for her, he kind of wins her over. And that's, I think, the strength of Luffy as a character is he's just such an inherently good person that he doesn't have to try to convince people to be on his side. He just is himself, and that's enough.
I mean, they say that actions speak louder than words, and his actions are ultimately usually what convinces people. He tries talking to people sometimes, and sometimes he's able to convince them, but for the most part, it's a lot of punching and standing up for other people and stuff that get people to join him. We also get Luffy being like, "Oh, I'll just make my own raft," because Marigold tells him that there's no ships, except for one that belongs to the Kuja pirates. And he immediately almost drowns, and she has to save him. So she's not heartless. She like recognizes that, you know, he's just a guy, and she starts to question like, why do we have to kill him just because he's a man? But Boa's gosh, I'm so used to the English, you know, first name
last
and then given name, yeah, or given name and then family name. But Hancock is such a strict ruler, such a "you will obey me" Iron Fist. That's what I'm thinking of. That she decides that Margaret and Sweet Pea and Alephandra are also guilty for having not killed Luffy and having tried to keep it from her. So she turns them into stone, which is one level of messed up. And then when Luffy is fighting her sisters, they are about to crush the statues that the girls have turned into. And Hancock and the sisters don't seem to have any remorse about it whatsoever, that's a great way to establish that your character's corrupt. Let them just kill their own subjects. You know, that's what distinguished Crocodile from Cobra. It's what distinguished Eneru from the Shandorians, like Wiper and such. And it's what differentiated Wapple from whoever took his place after he left. I think that was Dalton.
Well, and every island Luffy goes to, people's freedoms are being infringed upon in some way, and through his actions, he restores the freedom of the people. Mm-hmm. And in this case, it's almost like a weird, like, Boa Hancock is so beautiful that people can't help but forgive her.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of being trapped by her own beauty because there are no consequences to her actions. So Luffy being like, "Well, I don't think you're beautiful. I think you're an ugly piece of shit." That frees her from her own, like, spoiled upbringing.
That's very interesting. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I thought you were going for it's almost like an abusive relationship, because some people who are in abusive relationships will find excuses for the harm that is being done. And so a lot of the people that Boa kind of steps on figuratively, she doesn't actually step on anyone, but she does a lot of other gross stuff. But, you know, they all are kind of like, "Oh, but she's so beautiful. Like, what can we do about it?" I thought it was fascinating. Hancock and her sisters, they're going to kill Margaret, Sweet Pea, and Alephandra, and the crowd seems to be like, "It's what Hancock wants, so it's okay, yeah!" But then when Luffy tries to be like, "I'm gonna punch you," they're like, "Oh, he's so brutal." It's fascinating because, like, I literally think that they responded differently to the same actions or the same kind of behavior from the two sides differently, and I think that shows how they're kind of they've got tunnel vision. They're blindsided by Hancock.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when they start to be like, "Oh no, they're gonna break the Marigold statue," or the Margaret statue, I'm sorry.
I think they start with Margaret, yeah.
The crowd starts to get a little upset, and if you're thinking of this in terms of framing it as an abusive relationship, they've never seen anyone stand up to the Boa sisters, and now here Luffy is, and he's like, "Boo, you suck," and they're like, "Maybe they do suck."
Yes.
This is the first time it's ever occurred to them that maybe these people suck. Also, I just want to say, it gets said multiple times that in Amazon Lily, strength is beauty, but Boa Hancock is very traditionally beautiful. She's very full-figured. She's got a nice face. Her hair is pretty. So, like, I understand that she's also strong, but it's pretty clear that people are responding to her appearance, her aesthetics, and I think that her character design could have been changed to reflect the aesthetics of Amazon Lily instead of Oda's personal, like, this is what's sexy.
Yeah, I get that. I think it would be interesting if she was sexy. Well, she can or cannot be, but because it's Oda, we know she would be regardless. But I agree. I think that, like, it should show her, like, single-handedly defeating, like, a Sea King and like, carrying it on her back or something. Like, I think that would have been a much more effective way of reinforcing the themes than the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
So, Hancock, as I said before, turns people into stone using her Mero beam. And the word for beam is also like narrow, so in the Japanese it's like Mero narrow. And Catherine actually was like, did she say Mero 3 times? No, I don't think so. But Luffy ends up seeing her in the bath, as I kind of mentioned. He didn't do it on purpose. He fell from a high place and happened to land in there because Luffy's got the devil's luck. And she's like, well, you saw me naked. Who could possibly resist? Even when I'm clothed, scantily as it is, I can turn most people into stone. So I'm not going to turn you into stone. And it doesn't work. She forms the heart, and he goes, oh no, it's going to slow me down! But then he kind of looks around, and he's kind of like, what? And Hancock and her sisters are kind of like, what? And then Hancock does it again, and Luffy's just like, oh no! Wait, I'm fine. And Hancock is pissed because Luffy is asexual. I don't know if he actually is. If they did like a 10-year time skip at the end of the series, it wouldn't surprise me if someone has Luffy's child. But at the same time, this is the scene I used, a headcanon. Boy has no sexual thoughts.
You stole exactly what I was going to say. I'm sure we've talked about how we think Luffy is ace on this podcast before, but you cannot convince me man has any interest in women or sex at all. Like, I can't be convinced.
I guess he could theoretically be gay. Like, you know, because he wasn't turned on by Hancock's body. But at the same time, like, yeah, it's just like he has no thoughts, no impure thoughts that turn him to stone. He's so focused on adventure and he's so kind of childlike in certain aspects that, yeah, her powers don't work. And that's one of the things that infuriates her the most about him. Like you said, he's one of the only people who can stand up to her. And, yeah, he doesn't take her shit. I also just loved Luffy defeating Bakura, the Black Panther, in one shot. It's this kind of long build-up of him being in kind of like this arena, the execution chambers, and all the women are like, kill him, kill him, kill him! And then this giant panther comes up and they're like, we haven't fed him in 3 days, he's quite hungry, and he's growling, and then he jumps at Luffy, and Luffy just one punch, as I already said, knocks him into the stands, and then he's like, hey, queen, you piss me off.
She's so upset. She looks like she's gonna faint because, like, nobody has ever talked to her that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Boa Hancock, you spoiled baby. She kicks a kitten.
Yeah, she
and
absolutely does.
The person whose kitten it wasn't even mad. They were just like, oh man, I'm sorry, Boa.
Yeah. Hancock is an interesting character. And we haven't seen much of her. We've only seen one side of her personality, and maybe she is completely one-sided, but if she has another side of the personality, we haven't seen it. But the way she's introduced, she definitely feels cartoonishly villain. Like, she feels worse than, like, say, Buggy, who we hate. Well, most people enjoy. I hate to my very core.
But he's just a little buggy boy.
He's just a little buggy, a little clown boy, a little red-nosed freak. What did I say about his red nose?
Oh, Lord.
No, it's just Oda goes hard to sell how self-centered she is at the very beginning. She looks down on people so bad or so hard, I don't know what the right adjective is, that she bends backwards in order to, like, look down on them further, which is an interesting gag, but, like, yeah, Oda's trying to tell us, like, this woman only cares about her own pleasure.
She be spoiled. You know what we did not discuss?
Okay.
Whether or not we liked these episodes.
I liked them, yeah.
I thought that the Luffy versus Sandersonia and Marigold fights was one of the best animated fights we've had in the anime so far, and I don't know how I missed that the first time we were watching.
Yeah, absolutely. I love I don't know. I love the trope. Like, One Piece is a world that's like, what magical worlds can we go to? We go to an island where it's always snowing. It's basically implied when they went to Drum Island. They went to an island in the sky. They're going to go to an island underwater with mermaids. And now we have going to an island of just all women, which is, under certain people's authorship is could be a little yuck. And there are certain things about it that's kind of like, Like, why are all the women all in bikini tops? Like, why don't any of them just wear, like, regular clothes? But at the same time, there are different body types, and strength is more important to them than traditional beauty. But, no, it's just another, like, fantastical setting that we've seen in different myths and legends and stuff from ye olden days. So it makes sense to kind of translate that into modern times, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What about you? You liked the fight. Is there anything else about these episodes that stood out?
Oh man, I thought the humor in these episodes was really good. Like them pulling on his penis because they don't know what it is and think it's a mushroom joke went on a bit long, but them not knowing what men are and everything Luffy does, they think that's something all men can do was really funny. Men
can stretch and men can produce steam from their bodies.
Men can suddenly grow fat.
Yes, that's right.
Is my
Luffy
favorite.
Doesn't even explain. Luffy's just like, yeah, let's just say that men can grow fat because it's easier than saying I'm made of rubber. That's 4 words, Luffy.
Yeah, and they don't know what devil fruits are because they're so isolated. So they're talking about the cursed Gorgon sisters, and Luffy goes, "Curse? It looks like a devil fruit to me." Mm-hmm. And it's so funny for Luffy to be the educated one.
Yes. This also brings up an interesting question. So the people of the island believe that that Hancock went on this, like, fantastic adventure, and she slayed the Gorgon, but she was cursed, she and her sisters. That's why her sisters turn into snakes. That's why she can turn people into stone. They do have something on their back that Hancock would rather people die than ever see.
She would rather die than people see it.
Sure, yeah.
Probably both.
Yeah, she's willing to kill other people who see it, but I think you're right that she said specifically that she'd rather die. But if her devil fruit power seems to be turning people to stone, and the other 2 are snake users, I don't think that there's something that's common to those 3 fruits that they'd all have on their back. So what do they have on their back? We as viewers haven't seen it. We've only seen Luffy kind of reacting to it.
We saw the symbol through Sandersonia's, like, cape as it was burning away.
Okay,
you could see the silhouette of it. So it's some kind of symbol.
Mm-hmm. And we got a brief flash with Hancock where she was clearly not having a good time.
She's in a cage.
Yeah, it was like quick flashes that don't make complete sense out of context, but if you know what her backstory is, you're like, oh, that's what you were seeing. But she's an interesting character, and she has some more nuance to her character than some of the women in the show, but still not super nuanced.
So you're saying she's a transformer?
What?
More than meets the eye. Sponsor us, Hasbro.
Yeah, you freaking cowards. I like it all. So, what type of snake are the 2 sisters? Did I already go into that?
I think you mentioned, but Marigold is a king cobra and Sandersonia is an anaconda. Mm-hmm. And Oda messed up. Anacondas shouldn't have fangs. They're not venomous snakes, but he gave her fangs.
Yeah, and she wanted to, like, crush him, or, like, I think she
bite him to death.
Wanted to bite him to death, which is not. But, no, it's kind of interesting. They also have a set of abilities. In fact, all the people on the island seem to have a special ability. They can use hockey. Hockey? We've heard that so many times now. So they can shoot arrows that seem to be, they like can break stone. And Luffy's like, are these like specially designed arrows? But then he looks at them later and goes, oh, they seem normal. And Margaret's like, we can use hockey, you dumbass, basically. Sandersonia, I get the sisters mixed up because in my mind it's just the sisters. They're like a pair, do not separate. But Sandersonia was able to predict every one of Luffy's moves. She was able to dodge his attacks, and eventually when he went gear second, the way he beat her was by moving so fast that even if she could predict his movements, she couldn't keep up. And the other sister, Marigold, she wasn't as good at predicting movement, but she was able to bounce Luffy's attack off, and Luffy even is like, hey, this kind of reminds me of that axe guy from Sabaody. And at one point, Luffy's getting crushed in their giant snake tail, and she's like, hey, it's not surprising that you don't know what hockey is. If you don't know what hockey is, you're not ever going to become strong. You're not going to be able to fight opponents like us. So I don't know when would be the appropriate time to talk about this, because eventually Oda's got to explain. Like, Oda's shonen anime is not the type of place where they just leave something in the background and never explain it explicitly. They always explain the power system. But we've now seen quite a few different examples of this kind of stuff. We have seen people who could predict Luffy's movements before on Sky Island. We've seen people who can hurt Luffy even though he's made out of rubber before, Sentomaru the axe guy. And we've seen other people interact with devil fruit powers and cancel them out, aka Rayleigh versus Kizaru. So I am comfortable saying that we have enough pieces to understand at least what one can do with Haki.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll even add in, and I'm sorry if you said this and I missed it because I was glancing at our notes, but Luffy is getting angrier and angrier during this fight, and he yells, "Don't!" And there's a big ol' shockwave.
This is while Sandersonia has picked up the statue of Margaret and is like, "I'm going to smash it just to teach you a lesson." And Luffy doesn't mind getting the crap beaten out of him because, whatever, he made his choices, but Margaret's innocent in this, so he's like, desperately like, "Don't you dare," but he's wrapped up and he can't get out.
Right, so he screams, and there's this big shockwave, and half the crowd faints, and they very slowly put Margaret down.
And they slowly release Luffy, too. Yeah.
Right, and they say, he's got the Conqueror's Haki. That's only like 1 in a million people, and I've never met anyone other than our big sister who can use it. But we saw Rayleigh do that at the auction house.
Yes.
So we know there's this thing called Conqueror's Haki.
Yeah, and there seems to be different types. Like I kind of hinted at, this is not something that I would have noticed if I was watching these episodes the first time, but one of the sisters is able to dodge Luffy's attacks and predict where they're coming from. The other one doesn't seem to be doing that, doesn't seem to be like a kick from the left, but they are the one who can bounce Luffy's attack back. And when Luffy uses Conquerors, one of them, they don't say it out loud, but internal monologue, they're like, that's the rarest type. So there's different types of Haki, and they seem to have different abilities, and isn't it interesting that there's 3 Hancock sisters, or 3 Boa sisters, and they each seem to have their own specialty. That's very interesting.
I think the coolest thing about this is that it was foreshadowed so many times.
Yes.
Luffy used Conqueror's Haki on Thriller Bark. He made the dog, the Cerberus, sit. Or even in the first couple episodes of One Piece, Shanks stopping the Sea King just by glaring at it was Conqueror's Haki. And that was hundreds of episodes ago. So I'm really impressed with Oda as a writer. And I think it's neat.
Absolutely. Well, and he did another clever thing. We talked about this in a previous episode, but Oda is very good at foreshadowing, but a lot of authors who seem to be good at foreshadowing usually don't have everything completely figured out from the very beginning. A lot of them know that they want a concept, and they kind of have a general idea how it might work, so they start putting the general concepts down, but maybe Oda didn't actually know that he was going to call it Haki until just recently when he started calling it that. Or maybe he did know in Chapter 2, and he's just been hiding it this entire time. But if he knew that he was going to call it Haki, and that was going to be a thing that showed up around episode 414 is what we just watched, when he got to Sky Island, he called it something different. They didn't call it Haki. They called it Mantra. So even if you could go to a dictionary and look up Haki, and it's like the ability to predict your opponent's movements, Luffy wouldn't have known to put that keyword in the dictionary to look it up, because that's not what the only opponents he's ever fought who used it called it.
Right, and of course, the people on the Sky Islands, which are isolated from the rest of the world, would have a different name for things than maybe, what's out there on the seas. So I think that's really cool. I feel like Kuma sent him here to learn this on purpose.
Yeah.
Kuma saw him fighting Sentomaru and was like, wow, you suck.
Yeah.
Go get good.
And here's another thing. Again, I have a passing understanding of Japanese. I started doing duo lessons, but I didn't get very far, and then I switched to Spanish. But I do believe that Haki can be translated as spirit or ambition. And Wow, isn't that on theme for One Piece? Wow, haven't we had a lot of characters who have strong fighting spirits? And wow, isn't that the way it kind of works in JoJo's and other battle anime? And wow, of course Luffy, who wants to be king of the pirates, has a strong ambition that might seem to be shaping his abilities. So that's all very interesting. Do you have any theories? And I don't think this is confirmed in the anime later, so this isn't like foreknowledge. But do you have any theories as to like why his abilities worked now? Was this just the first time he was desperate?
Luffy's never really had to exert his will this way before, right? Like I said, he did it to the Cerberus on Thriller Bark, but most of the time Luffy can just punch something and that stops it from happening.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So this is the first time he has been physically powerless and like really wanted to change something. And I think that maybe he could have used it during when Kuma was booping everyone away. Okay. But I think that the emotional like trauma of that happening overrode his ability to do that.
We've seen Eneru at the beginning of his fight when he tried to hit Luffy. He basically said, "Calm down. If you lose focus, my mantra won't work." And then Luffy got like a kick in, I think. And so yeah, it seems to be related to your kind of state of mind. As I said earlier when we were speculating when like Rayleigh was doing stuff, you have to be careful with this kind of power because if Luffy can just make people fall unconscious, there's not really a way to raise the tension. He just goes up to the Don Kriegs and the Arlongs and the whoever he fights and he just snaps and they fall over.
But that's the thing, right? Like not everybody went unconscious, just like half the crowd. It didn't make Sandersonia and Marigold pass out and it didn't work on Hancock. So maybe there's something there where like you have to train yourself to be strong in order to use it more effectively.
Here's my kind of theory. I say theory because it's not explicitly stated, but I think it's pretty obvious. So I think like the theory crafters, you know, like Teching and Joy Boy, if I said it to them, they'd be like, yeah, that's pretty much implicit in the text. But I think that the further into the Grand Line Luffy goes, the stronger he has to fight to protect his dreams. Like, what was the big threat in East Blue? Arlong. He didn't really struggle against Arlong. Like, he didn't win right away. He had to fight for it, but he was never, like, in a lot of danger other than when he was underwater, and that's his own fault for trying to use Gum Gum Windmill. But then he goes and he fights a Warlord of the Sea, and he loses twice. He gets impaled on a hook. He gets poisoned. But he manages to overcome that challenge anyways. He fights a man who calls himself God, and if he wasn't made of rubber, I don't think he would have been able to fight. So, like, he's basically taking on larger and larger burdens and fighting stronger and stronger opponents. And the gap between him and, say, like, Usopp, I think is getting wider and wider. Usopp is growing stronger, but he's growing at the rate of, like, 1 Usopp a day, and Luffy's over here at, like, 4.5 Usopps a day, right? He's just, the gap between them is getting wider and wider, so Luffy has to fight even harder to protect the members of his crew that aren't capable of protecting themselves in very specific cases.
Right, and it kind of seems like he's more likely to fight opponents who will target weak people.
Yeah.
Like, the people are becoming more ruthless.
Exactly. So if there is if this is related to your strength of mind and your strength of will and your mental capacity, I think the reason that Luffy's abilities are awakening here, one, maybe it's like the more hockey happens around you, the more your brain changes. They say that your neurons fire the way they're wired or whatever it is. And so maybe as he sees other people doing stuff, his brain subconscious is like, maybe I could do that. But also I think that it's because at this point he is taking on a greater challenge. He doesn't have friends who can help him. He has to rely on himself, save these 3 women. He's powerless. He's being attacked by 2 fairly strong warriors. And so at that moment it just kind of like, so.
Yeah. I had one more thought that I didn't really touch on when we were talking about whether or not we liked the episodes. Luffy is canonically not interested in sex, but he will use drugs. He's wandering around the forest and he's all sad because he doesn't have his friends, and he sees laughing mushrooms and he goes, "Laughing mushrooms? Those are the mushrooms that make you happy." And he starts like shoving handfuls of mushrooms into his mouth. He used drugs so he didn't have to feel
he ate another mushroom that made him sad, and he's like, I don't need this right now. So yeah, he's fine with mind-altering substances, or at least emotional-altering ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, where do you think we're gonna go from here? Because Luffy needs a ship. There's really only the one ship. Oh my god, he fights Momonga. He fights the Vice Admiral and pilots that ship.
Momonga. So, this group of episode ended with Boa saying, "The fight is over. Everyone get the fuck out." Right? In those words, that's what she said. And so now it's just Luffy, who's still protecting Sandersonia's back, and Marigold and Hancock. And so I think
And
Hancock...
Granny's still there.
Oh, did she stay?
Yeah.
I missed that. I think Hancock is going to say, like, you protected my sister's secret that we would have died to protect, so we're not going to kill you anymore.
I shall grant you one boon. You may touch either the right or the left titty for 3 seconds.
Yeah, but, like, get the fuck off our island, though. And Luffy's going to be like, well, I would love to get off of your island, but I can't, so would you mind taking me in your ship to maybe over there? And maybe Boa will be like, okay, you know what? Sure, we'll get your grubby little man feet off of our island in our ship. Let's go. Okay. And so I think that'll be that.
Okay. Will we get episodes detailing the other crews at some point? Like
the other crew members?
Will Luffy have to go back to Sabaody and wait for his friends to show up, or will he have to go on a collect them adventure where he goes to the island that Frankie's on, then he and Frankie go to Sanji and...
He'll probably go wait. Because I can't imagine him being able to find them unless they all come back together. And Luffy's not a man of multiple plans, so he's made a plan. His plan is go meet at the place we said we would meet at. And that's what he's gonna do. I hope we get to see stuff from the other crew. It's rough to travel the seas, especially by yourself. So I have no idea how, like, Usopp, for example, all by himself is gonna get back to Sabaody. Is he gonna lie his way onto some other pirate ship?
Well, and, like, so Frankie, he always had his Frankie family, and before that he had the Tom's workers, but I don't know if he necessarily has as much problems being on his own compared to Brooke, who faced it for 50 years, Robin, who's kind of relying on them to help save her from her traumatic past, Nami, who felt isolated by Arlong, Usopp, who feels weak, and Chopper, who has kind of more of a childish mentality. So, like, I think Zoro, Sanji, Frankie, I think those three are probably okay being on their own, but the others might have trauma that, like, the body remembers, right? And so, it'll be interesting to see how they act, you know? And also, they were supposed to meet in 2 days, so if that's the goal, if everyone's going to be like, okay, that's Luffy's plan, that's got to be our plan, how hard is it going to be for them to get back? They flew in the air for 3 days and 3 nights, and now they want to get back in 2 days?
And which direction on the Grand Line did they go? Because you can't travel backwards, and this and that and the other thing. I'm so confused and worried for our friends. Yeah. This war that Momonga mentioned, do you think anything's going to come of that in the next set of episodes?
Like, listen, we have the brother of the main character, his only flesh and blood relative who's also a pirate, not like his dad, the revolutionary, or his grandpa, the mean vice admiral. He's been captured, and he's going to be executed, and they foreshadowed don't mess with Whitebeard, and they're gathering the 7 Shichibukai, which, as far as we can tell, they're kind of independent agents. This has to be building towards something. Like, it has to be, regardless of whether I've seen the next chapters or not. Like, something's going on, but at the same time, I'm curious how Luffy will get mixed up in it.
Well, and I mean, Luffy doesn't know that this is happening to Ace, right? This is just something we know. Yes. But if that's where... If he found out about this, I could see him wanting to get involved, because at one point he was like, Ace's problems are his problems. I don't have to come save him. But if Ace is literally about to be executed, I can't see Luffy waving that off as easily.
Yeah.
So if he finds out about it, then I can imagine him wanting to go there. And conveniently, there are people around him who are supposed to be going there. So maybe he hitches a ride with Hancock and he's like, I'll reunite with my friends after I do this.
They go to Marine headquarters and they've got, like, the giant doors of justice. I'm sure they're giant and opulent and gross. But they're like, all right, checking in. Here is Shichibukai number 6, Boa Hancock. And who's this? And Hancock is just like, oh, this is my +1. Isn't that Monkey D. Luffy? Didn't he die 3 days ago? Wasn't he killed by Kuma? No.
You're misunderstanding. This is my +1.
I got something to show you, and her hand reaches for
Boa walks up to the gate and says, "Hello, Marines, I am here to spare a crumb of coochie."
Wow, okay, yeah.
Joel said I wasn't allowed to make that joke on the podcast, so I knew I had to sneak it in. If he censors me, know that we will not stand for being silenced. I will take to the social media.
If we're allowing, like, the TikTok and online and social media, like, crazes
Slang.
and memes and stuff onto the podcast, who do you think twerks the best between
Lord.
the Boa sisters?
No, we're not doing that.
No, come on, tell me. Who do you think? Who do you think practices the twerking?
That's not a meme, though, so it's not funny. Ma'am, can you spare a crumb of coochie is funny. Like, imagine Sanji, like, running, just booking it up to a woman, and he's, like, calling her, trying to get her attention. Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
He's kicking people out of the way. Yeah, I could see it. No, and, something else that's interesting is that, Granny Neon is, again, one of, like, the few people on the island who is still in the arena, and she was reading a newspaper, and we know for a fact that, the newspaper on Sabaody 3 days ago had news of Ace's execution date being set, and also Momonga mentioned it, so, like, it definitely seems like the information is going to reach Luffy pretty soon. And,
Absolutely.
So that's very interesting. Really quick, for those keeping track at home, the Shichibukai are the 7 warlords of the sea. That's what the Shichi stands for. We have now met 6 of them. All but one of the original 7 have been on screen. Although, you and I were talking off mic and we realized that Luffy has not interacted with Doflamingo personally, but we, the viewers, have seen Mihawk the Swordsman, who fought Zoro. We have seen Crocodile the Warlord, who tried to take over Alabasta. We've seen Doflamingo, who messed with people at Marine headquarters and also owned the human auction shop and also made Zarquis kill Bellamy, or maybe the other way around. We have met Kuma, who also was at headquarters with Doffy after Crocodile was defeated, who was the one who booped them all to the 4 corners of the earth, who also fought Zoro at the end of Thriller Bark. We have met Moria, the giant onion man. We all remember him.
Everyone hail to the Pumpkin King.
And now we have met Boa Hancock, the 6th member of the Shichibukai, and she's the most beautiful and whatever.
There's only one woman's Shichibukai.
Yeah.
Oda, there's 7 of them.
Yeah, as statistically.
Only 1 in every 7 people is strong and a woman. 1 in every 7 strong people is a woman. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. All of them are fairly white. I mean, I think Kuma has slightly darker skin than the rest of them. But no, Doffy and Mihawk.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not even comfortable addressing race in anime in general, but One Piece specifically, because it's so hard to tell with what the different skin tones are supposed to be, and they change them in the anime, and they're different in the anime than they are in the manga sometimes. So I'm not gonna say it. They're all Japanese as far as I care, and Oda, it would be cool if you could be a little bit more explicit, but I know that your art style is going to be what it is, and someone else can comment on that.
You know what? That's absolutely fair. We don't want to get mired in political kind of conflict or whatever. I will say, from my personal view, this is not the view of the podcast, it'd be cool if there were more black characters in One Piece. We had, she wasn't Miss Friday, was she? The one that Zoro
I know who you're
fought.
talking about, yeah.
We've had a couple, like, explicitly black characters, but, like, 3 of them.
Well, and the characters who are explicitly black so far kind of tend to lean on stereotypes.
Sure.
Like, Oda in an SBS answered which country everyone would be from, and I'm pretty sure for Usopp he just said Africa. Like, I don't think he said
continent, not a country.
Specific country in Africa. Yeah. And Usopp doesn't really have like a darker skin tone, especially later in the anime, and he's got the weird lips, and so like Oda has opportunities and has, like, kind of tried to include black people, but, like, not in a way that most people would be like, this is good representation. I feel good about this.
Yeah, we shouldn't dwell on it too much. It would be cool. But also, I said that we have met 6 of the 7 Shichibukai on screen, but Johnny and Yanni, from way back in the day, early podcast, I'm pretty sure they mentioned that there is a member who is related to Arlong that used to roll with Arlong back in the day named Jinbei, but we have not had an on-screen appearance from him. But I will say that I think having the last member of a group introduced could be a big deal, you know? Like, I think that if you say, you know, here are the 10 commandments from 7 Deadly Sins, but we're only going to show 9 of them on screen. You're like, okay, so the 10th one's like the most powerful, right? So Oda's probably saving up the 7th one. It seems like they're being summoned to this Marineford arc, so maybe that's where they'll make their appearance.
I'm really curious how many of them are going to show up and how many are going to be like, fuck you, you can't tell me what to do, even though my title of Warlord implicitly gives you permission to tell me what to do. Like, how many of them take being a warlord seriously, and how many are like, whatever, man, the government wants to call me a warlord, they can call me one, but I'm going to do what I want.
How often does the Navy call on warlords to do warlord duties? Like, is it just the prestige? Is it the threat? You know, like, if you mess up, we'll send a sword boy and the shadow boy to come get you.
Is it a way for them to have an illusion of control over piracy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that just about wraps it up. I do want to say that both the younger Boa sisters could turn their hair into snakes. It would appear, I guess, that Sandersonia can make more of them because she became the 8-headed Orochi, I think, and she had, about 8 strands of hair into snake shapes, and Marigold only had 2, but she compensated for that by setting them on fire. But like, we've seen one other person who can manipulate their hair like that, and it was Yo guy from Annie's Lobby, and that guy, whose name I don't remember, Kumadori, he called that, like, his life return ability, like it was a specific skill that they knew, and so I'm curious as to whether or not, when the Boa sisters did it, is that because of their hockey? Can hockey do the hair transforming? Or do they also have the life return because they train for 40 years or however long it takes to master the 6 arts?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
And that has been your do. Wait! I just want to say, no thoughts from the crew this week. Y'all on Twitter are slacking. Send us your thoughts for the next set of episodes.
Yeah.
That's been your do. Final thought. Outro goes here.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Next episode 100.
Woo!
King of the What Now?
King of the What Now?
We'll be covering episodes 415 through 421. Again, this is kind of mild spoilers, but we'll be wrapping up the Amazon Lily arc. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Ha-ha! What a great episode of King of the What Now, your One Piece podcast that started from the very beginning and stars these 2 doofuses. If you want to follow us on social media, Twitter is the best place to do that. I am at KOTWN_pod.
And I am at Pirate Ghost Host.
Absolutely, yes. We share all sorts of thoughts on there, some related to the podcast, some related to other things. But you can also reach us through email at kingofthewhatpod@gmail.com, or you can also find us on Patreon. We would love some subscribers or supporters, whatever the technical term is. Patrons. So fancy and grown up. And you can find that at patreon.com/kingofthewhatpod. You can find all sorts of things like bonus episodes, and you get to see the full cold open candidates, not just the ones that make it into the episode. Maybe someday if I learn to draw, I'll put stuff up there. We're always looking for suggestions and feedback. And speaking of which,
please take a moment to rate and review our podcast wherever you get us from. So iTunes, Spotify, Scrivener, that's for writing. But wherever you listen to our podcast, take take a moment to leave a review. It helps other people find us. We are so grateful to all of our listeners, and we couldn't do this without you.
Absolutely. Word of mouth is super powerful, so if you have a friend who likes One Piece and they haven't heard of us, just direct them to the latest episode. And if they hate us, they can tell us why. And if there's an actionable item, we'll try to please you. That's how this works. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.